Welcome to the Master Series. We're very glad that you could join us today. My name is Carol Guest, and I serve as your interim president for the Greater Houston Black Chamber of Commerce. And we look forward to having a very interesting conversation today. We have a very special person on the Master Series today, Mr. Chris Williams with Lucille's and Lucille's 1913. Welcome, Chris, to the Masters.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. Okay, so today's conversation is going to be very interesting. As you all know, I like to just bring out in our guests some real conversation. So you may hear some real conversation today that you might not normally hear, but we want you to be able to take away some good things that you can use practically in your business. So we'll get started with just a little bit of information, some background information. Chris has a long resume, but for those of you who don't know him, Chris, I'd like for you to tell just a little bit about yourself and how you got into the restaurant business.
Sure. Well, excuse me. First, thank you for everybody. Thanks to everybody for joining. And thanks for involving me in this series. It's a really nice honor. Yeah, so I've been in the restaurant industry for 25 years and worked everywhere from London to Lithuania to Canada, up and down the East Coast. And then ultimately that led me back home to Houston to open up Lucille's, which is our restaurant in the Museum District. We've been doing business there for 9 years in August. And with this pandemic this year, it led me to start our nonprofit Lucilles 1913, whose mission is to essentially create a vertically integrated ecosystem that will create opportunities for hopefully a sustainable livelihood through the medium of food. We can talk about what that means a little bit down the road, but yeah, that's pretty much where we're at right now.
Okay, well, everyone, you know, Chris is modest. He is an award-winning chef, and one of the awards he won was the Pinnacle Awards. And so I would like to highlight that. We considered Lucille's a staple in our community, an organization that has been consistent as far as growth and hiring our people and our vendors. And so that's one of the reasons why we chose Chris for a Pinnacle Award. So let's talk about the history behind the restaurant. You talk about your great grandmother Lucille and what she accomplished. So how do you integrate that history into what you're currently doing to keep the restaurant modern and popular?
Well, I guess the way that we integrate that, I think that's a good word, is that she's at the front of everything that we do. From her approach to this business and her approach to business period and her approach to her creativity as a chef. She wasn't limited by the social framing at the time on how she wanted to pursue her work and how she wanted to contribute to her community, but she wanted to do both of them fiercely. And so that's pretty much what we're doing now. We think outside of the box, and we always put community first. It's been part of our ethos from the start, is that an investment in the community is essentially an investment in yourself. And we've seen that prove itself to be true time and time again, especially with this past year. And then just actual tangible things that we do in the restaurant is that we serve 2 of her original recipes, which are over 100 years old. The hot rolls, which are the first instant hot roll mix in the country, that's Pillsbury jacked that recipe and it led to their empire. And that's verified by the Chicago Tribune in 2014.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Yeah. So we sell that, and we also sell our chili biscuits, which is an iteration of that dough, which are still some of our best sellers 100 years past, over 100 years after their creation. So it's a real testament to her fearlessness and her genius. And we carry that with us with everything that we do.
You mentioned There are some things going on, as far as business is concerned. You have intellectual property issues. People don't necessarily know how to protect their product, and you've been in business for a minute now. And, how do you, when it comes to intellectual property, um, how would you, how would you say that you're protecting your brand, you're protecting your assets, and how important is that as far as running your business?
Well, I think in the restaurant business, the unfortunate truth in the restaurant business is that it's a copycat kind of game. People see some measure of success and they want to immediately try to integrate that into their narrative or their actual dishes, and so I've come to accept that that's just like what it is. And I guess what we do with that is we allow that to drive us to continue to be ahead of the curve, to keep creating, because I can't essentially copyright a dish. You know what I mean? I can't copyright or trademark our style of service. What we've essentially done now is just like, okay, well, we see another model that comes up that's doing something that's, using our story or taking our approach. We're just like, okay, well, I hope it works out for you. Wish them the best. You can have that one. And now we'll start, working on the next thing. As far as brand, protection of the brand, I mean, I just find that, and again, it's unique to my business, but I guess it speaks for any business really. But specifically on mine, with Houston having the more restaurants per capita, even now at this point through the pandemic, we still have the most restaurants per capita than any other city in the country. It really helps for you to have a significant story to go along with whatever your product is. We're fortunate enough to have an amazing true story built into our brand and great grandmommy's still carrying us. But there are opportunities like that everywhere. You just have to tap into them and stay true to them. There's one thing to, say something, and it's another thing to be something. So we try to really be true to that and stand in what we say we're going to do. That's pretty much what I got for that one.
So, when you talk about standing out, this market being, what some people might call saturated with so many restaurants, what do you think made you bold enough to go ahead and say, I'm going to open a restaurant? It doesn't matter how many of them are here, because in my thought process, an entrepreneur has to be bold, has to be fearless, and have a never say die attitude. So what motivated you to say, I'm going to open this restaurant and then do it?
I think the one thing that, I mean, I agree with everything you said about what an entrepreneur has to be, but they also have to have passion. And like you said, with this oversaturated restaurant market that we're in, I saw that opportunity because there wasn't a Black-owned restaurant doing, like, really showcasing what we're capable of doing. Like, it was such a limited, and even to this day, it's such a limited framing of what Black African-American foodways truly are, what they can be, what African-American chefs are capable of, like our wealth of experience. I mean, we've cooked all over the world, but when it comes to like making a viable business, it's if you want to be successful, you have to be limited to like 3 categories, right? And we all know them. It's a standard, breakfast, barbecue, or soul food. When we can, some of the top restaurants in the world are actually driven by Black chefs. And there's an awakening that's happening to that now. But that being said, I'm passionate about food. I saw an opportunity in a neighborhood to do really just what I was passionate about. I mean, I love restaurants. I used to love cooking. and it was just the perfect time. And up to that point, like Houston had a very polarized dining scene, right? It's like, Black folks eat over here, white folks eat over there. The only place you'd see like true diversity under one roof would be like the Papas or Mexican restaurants. You know what I mean? Because it's so very clear what you're going to get, what the service is going to be, what to expect, what the price point is. And so those aren't really experience-driven concepts. We saw an opportunity to do an experience-based concept, and the sole purpose of it was not to be a successful business, not to do anything outside of just to create a space where we'd have the freedom to do what we wanted to do, how we want to do it, when we want to do it. And I think ultimately that's what you have to keep with you to have any measure of success as an entrepreneur. Like that has to drive you.
And you know, you were talking about an experience-based business. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. You were talking about an experience base. And I know that when there's a lot of talk about branding being an experience. You know, you should brand your product. You should, you know, people need to feel some kind of way when they're interacting with your product or with your service. What do you think the experience is like inside Lucille's in the restaurant itself that keeps people coming back?
The experience has evolved, right? Like, so initially the whole thing was to welcome you into your grandmother's house. Like we wanted to disarm people, put them at ease immediately, honestly lure them in with their expectations of what this experience is supposed to be, and then surprise them in a very comfortable, approachable way. And so we were pretty successful in that. And now it's evolved to just like this center of good energy. Because, and that's really just a result of being able to keep essentially 90% of our staff on throughout, you know, from the start of the pandemic to this point. We kept everybody on. We didn't furlough one person. And so I'm fortunate enough to say that my staff is still with me, and they know that I'm there fighting for them, and they know what it took for us to fight for each other to make it through this. So we have this amazing kind of cohesive, beautiful energy in the building, and then extended to benefit the rest of our city, not only through the work that we're doing at 1913, but also just our brethren in the restaurant industry, in the hospitality industry, with our bar programs that we were doing, where we, you know, bars were closed and we gave our patio bar up and put close to $56,000 into these out of work bartenders' pockets. The restaurant's now known for those kind of good works. And it's also known for being extremely diverse as far as clientele and staff. And so what's beautiful is that it's become like this community spots where people can all come together comfortably and break bread in the exact same space from completely different walks of life, but enjoy it for what it is.
You know, I think that's important because when you talk about a customer base, having a diverse customer base, I think really can impact your bottom line in a great way. So was that intentional on your part to say, you know, we want to make sure that our clientele is diverse. We want people to walk in and feel welcome no matter, you know, their background. Was that part of your plan and strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. From the very beginning. I mean, I worked in Europe for close to 4 years. And I really kind of based the model off of what I see in the pub culture, especially in England, right? So like if you go into a pub out over there, you'd see, you know, these taverns full of politicians or parliamentarians and plumbers and people that are out of work, all that kind of stuff. And when it came down to the pub, it's there for them to just have a drink, make friends for that moment, even if, you know, these aren't lasting friendships. These are friendships that are born, cultivated over the course of however many pints they have. But that really stuck with me because I loved how it was the pub culture was like an amazing equalizer as far as society was concerned out there. Everybody could kick it in the pub. And it's a good business model because I don't know why you would want to limit yourself to any one demographic. I mean, what we're trying to do is grab green, right?
Right.
To sustain the business.
That really is the only color.
Yeah, that's the only color. And so so I deliberately wanted to create a culture like that. And I knew that to get there, we needed to provide a space to where people could see themselves somewhere in the building. You know what I mean? At all times, because that's the ultimate disarmer. Like, you need to be able to see something that brings you comfort. The only places that don't have to do that, or that just don't do it, are, you know, sushi restaurants and most Mexican restaurants. And I don't really know why that has lasted so long, like why it's even allowed to stand. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want to go fly over to sushi restaurant just to see how they handle it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but for us, we knew that we need to have deliberate, like, placeholders that would make everybody that comes through those doors, they could find something they identify with to make them feel comfortable, because we are undeniably a Black-owned restaurant. Everybody knew that coming out the gate. But those little things, those little comfort notes that we could offer, really, you know, it did a lot for us.
Do you, you know, when people start their businesses, they typically have, you know, a business plan, maybe something written, something, maybe something less informal. Did you start off with a written business plan, and did you stick to it?
No, I started off with just seeing the building. I was working for another hospitality group at the time, and I was with my sons over at the Children's Museum, and I just happened to see the building that now houses Lucilles. And we walked over there, and the door and the gate and everything was open, and just curious, you know, this father and son just taking a walk. And when we were in there, I could see the whole vision of what Lucilles is today. And so we had the conversation. I called the number on the board and had a conversation with the, excuse me one second. I had a conversation with the landlord about, hey, we want to put a restaurant in there. Didn't know what the concept was going to be. I was still, I guess I was only in Houston for 2 years. So I had, you know, all this huge culinary toolkit. So many things that we could do. And it was actually my older brother, Ben, that gave me the idea to name it after our great grandmother. And so that's where the whole concept and the approach to business was born, but we didn't go in it the traditional way. Everything was conceptual.
Yeah, I was, you know, one of the things that sometimes when we go through business coaching, we'll get, you know, the advice, you need to, you know, draft your business plan, stick to it. You know, one time I heard an interview that Martha Stewart did, and she said at a table, got a napkin and wrote down her business plan.
Yeah.
And that was her business plan. And so, you know, I think some of the greats like you and like Martha Stewart give us this example that sometimes you have to deviate from it, you know, and if you do, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's a good roadmap, but sometimes you have to take some risks and step away. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think being malleable is the most important thing with running a business. I mean, because we can all have these lofty ideas on how we're going to do things, but then there's reality, and things have to change immediately. You know, like you have to. I mean, this year or 2020 is a great example of that, and 2021 is actually not different. You have to be able to switch gears immediately. Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask, you know, everyone has had their way that they've handled the pandemic, you know, and really when you think about the pandemic, it could be any type of disaster, you know, a hurricane, and we don't get earthquakes, but, you know, we did get the freeze, you know, a few months ago. So how did you adjust? Did you have a disaster plan in place? You know, tell us how you were able to, you know, keep your doors open during that time.
Well, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, excuse me, and I didn't realize how uniquely prepared we were for all these things. Not that you would ever prepare for these things, because I mean, who prepares for these kind of things? But I guess the first thing is that in our business, we have to know how to do every single thing. Like, you're dependent on your team, But if somebody on your team can't do it, that doesn't mean that that component of your business doesn't, operate anymore. You step in and you handle it. And so that's how Lucille's was built. It was built between me and Chef Kang, catering ourselves out of this house that we built a kitchen in, doing 400 meals a day, and just getting these contracts, serving Houston Hospital for Specialized Surgery, all their patients and all their physicians 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and learning these medical terms for these diets. And that was a ridiculous thing in its own. And then taking on Exxon, and got to the point where we were doing $75,000 a month just between 2 people, and which really got our doors open. And then you take that to Harvey, to where staff literally could not make it to the building, right? Like they just couldn't get there. That doesn't mean that we have to stop. I mean, business to clients can't get there either. Not all of it, the neighborhood could, and we were dry. So the people that could get there, and that was just me and 2 other people, then we just make it happen. When the pandemic comes, that one was really interesting because, I mean, for so many reasons, but the call on that was to really stand up for each other, right? And how do we keep this team, and that our team has been to get on average, our average tenure for our employees is around 4 years. Typically in restaurants, it's 4 months. And so these people have like built Lucille's with me. And so there's no conversation of furlough or, anything like that. Like the whole commitment, the whole focus with this was like, we took profitability out of the equation, and we wanted to focus on sustainability. And what do we have to do to ensure that we can keep these people's families whole, my work family whole, and keep the lights on and all that kind of stuff. And so with that commitment that we made to our staff, that we would do that, that set the course for business moving forward. And actually the growth that we had, because when you take profitability out of the equation, it just completely switches your focus. And when you make a profit, that profit that you're not planning on goes right back into your team, or goes right back into the community. And then you get ultimate buy-in because everybody can see that. And then, and the same thing with Yuri. I mean, I think I've had enough of these things, but yeah, I think that's what it was. It was just knowing how to, like, not being saved by any one person, and being prepared to look out for every person that's got us to this point where we are. And like that commitment that we've kept the entire time through everything that we've gone through is what's really kept us going, because now everybody's struggling to find staff. Like, people cannot find staff, and have we let our people go, we'd be in the exact same place. But we don't have those issues, thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully. And what I hear, as you describe that process and what you went through, what I hear is leadership. And so I think leadership in business is sometimes taken for granted, because entrepreneurs are always scrambling to get, just do the thing. What is the thing to get the product out? What is the thing to get the service out? But then there's no real focus and consideration on, staffing, HR, the relationships that need to be maintained in order to keep the business going operationally. So what would you say the leadership qualities you exercised were during that time? What do you think a leader in your position needed to have in order to make all of that work with your staff, to keep people on, and to even think about, taking out profitability to continue for your business to keep moving forward? Because I think a lot of people would just have a stroke thinking that, okay, I can't have profits, so I got to reduce my profits. Like, how did you make that work? So that's several questions: the leadership skills, and then, envisioning, reduced profits and using them in a different way.
I guess the answer to both of them is just one word, 3 syllables: empathy. The leadership skills come from, or like the respect that comes from the team, which, any leader is going to need. It came from the fact, I believe, that I'm not sitting over here barking orders. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here living with you. Like, we're here together. We're all working, trying to figure out these plans. How do we make this, curbside thing safe, not only for the guests, but for us. We have to keep ourselves safe. How do we do that? Okay, I know how we do it, Chef. How about we just don't take cash? No cash. Oh, that's a brilliant idea. It's going to cost us some more money. We're going to lose with these merchant service fees, but you're right. That's going to keep us safe. And that's just a small example of all this stuff that goes through this collective effort and create an environment to where people are comfortable speaking truth to power, which is what, I mean, sometimes I wish they'd hold back on some of their truth, but they're extremely comfortable with telling me what's up. And they know that I'm willing to listen and learn constantly. But yeah, it starts with empathy. And as far as like the profitability thing, like we had gotten to a place to where like that 2020 or 2019 was our breakthrough year where we finally turned a profit. And I finally put like a few dollars on the side to where, hey, okay, we're making some progress. And so knowing about my team, knowing how this is going to affect it, I knew, I didn't know it was going to be a full year, but I definitely knew it wasn't going to be 2 weeks. And so with that plan in mind and with my commitment to my team, like that was immediate. Like I didn't think about that. That was just an immediate reaction. Like, listen, you guys, if you feel safe staying here, I got a home for you. I know you guys make hourly. We're going to turn that hourly into a salary. We're going to find a way to keep you exactly where you're at right now. And as soon as I committed that to myself and then said it out loud to them, then you start making the phone calls to your vendors, to your landlord. Like, yo, this is what I'm doing. I'm not about to make any money. Whatever's lost this year or however long it's gone, it's not going to come back. I didn't know what PPP was going to be a thing. It's wonderful, but I had 2 plans for that. And so I had the conversations with them and I said, how about we just continue doing business? You take my model, you take profitability out. You're not going to mark me up anymore. I'll pay cost. That way you can pay your bills. You can keep your business going, keep your staff going on. You can pay your mortgage, whatever it is. And then when this is done, we can get back to business as usual. And thankfully enough, these conversations weren't that difficult.
Well, that is visionary in itself, because I don't know too many people that would be thinking about, let me just pay you at cost. So that's definitely a tip that we can take forward and utilize in our own businesses. And, but, despite this pandemic, you're growing. You have a few concepts on the way. Now, how do you account for that growth? Because we know, and I don't know how much our participants know, that you're opening a new concept called Late August. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be housed at the Ion. And there's also a restaurant in the works in Nova Scotia. So how are you growing in the midst of all of this?
Well, so these things, the Nova Scotian restaurant, the Nova Scotia, Canada in Halifax, I've been working on that one for 3 years. And that's, just a quick rundown on what that one is. That's going to be a celebration of Nova Scotian ingredients with Lebanese influences. And the reason why we're doing that one is because my sons live in Canada and they live in Nova Scotia. And while it's a lovely place and the people are very nice, there are very few opportunities for people of color. There's 0 examples of Black ownership in Nova Scotia. And given these are my sons, I'd much rather have them there. But if they can't be here, I'd much rather have them here, even though this country's going crazy. If they're there, I need to be able to provide some kind of example of what they come from. So that's why we're doing that restaurant out there. It was scheduled to open this year, but of course, Canada shut down their borders. Late August has been a restaurant that I've been working on for about a little bit over a year, right before the pandemic started, actually. And to be honest, I think it's really important for us to take advantage of these opportunities to really show Black business in a new light, because the framing right now is just so limited. It's so limited. And the people behind me have so very few examples of what success could look like. You know what I mean? And, success is all relative. But when they came to me about the opportunity at the Ion Center, my first thought was like, okay, there's no way I could afford that. And how am I going to do that? And I'm only one chef. How am I supposed to do that? And then I thought about it and I was like, I would be a fool to not try to make this happen. You know what I mean? Like, because, you know, insert any other person, they're going to make it happen. They're going to go to banks, they're going to go to their resources, whatever they have that we typically don't have, and they'll find a way because they have that privilege of audacity that you just, yeah, I can do it. You know, let me call up whoever. And so we don't have whoever who can call up, but yeah, we can do it. So we just went ahead and did it. And so it turns out that it couldn't be at a better time with this socioeconomic Black awakening that's happening. Like, it couldn't be at a better time. That Black folks are finally reclaiming or claiming their own businesses and claiming the power of their own dollars, and that they're investing it back in their own businesses. So it's just a blessing. You know, I would say coincidence, but we'll just go with blessing. But it all starts with
blessing.
Yeah, but it starts with the fearlessness to try, to just try, and just fail your way all the way up.
Failing all the way up. That is a true entrepreneurship concept, failing all the way up. So tell us what late August, you know, what can we expect from late August?
Well, late August is, so I don't know if anybody listening or joining us today is familiar with Top Chef, but it's an amazing show. It's the culinary show. If anybody's into food shows, like, that's the show that the chefs watch. Late August is going to be powered by Chef Dawn Burrell. She's on Top Chef right now. She's a former Olympian, and truly the only person that I know alive today on this planet who's achieved this feat of being a master of two things in one lifetime. She was a former Olympian. She left that life, and now she is truly one of the best chefs that I've ever worked with anywhere in the world. Like, she's so good that she makes me want to take this chef moniker off all my social media handles. Like, she's that live. So she's going to drive the concept, and as far as the culinary program is concerned, and we're going to expect a bunch of like ancient cooking methods. You're going to see like African and Asian notes on every plate. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I tasted it, and it is insanely delicious. It's crazy what the way her mind works. The reason why we named it Late August is because it's in the Sears building. And so as I was researching the Sears Roebuck company, I saw how, you know, these guys, I don't know what their politics were, but I know they were capitalists, and they were such capitalists that they went ahead and desegregated the shopping experiences for people across the country by essentially becoming Amazon before Amazon. And my experience with Sears, outside of, you know, my mother dragging me over there to go pick up a shirt that I didn't want, was the Sears catalog.
Listen, I know all about those Easter clothes, but anyway, go ahead.
Right. But it was, you know, for anybody over 35, they know about the Sears catalog. I mean, the Christmas catalog. And that's something every child would look for every year. And I'm sure every parent would dread every year, because that's that opportunity for the kid to just circle everything in the book and then present it to their parents like, I want that. And then the parent has 4 months to let the kid down on Christmas Day. Like, okay, so you wanted all that, but you got that one. But it reminded me of these great feelings that I had as a kid, and, you know, that hope. And so we wanted to, you know, make it like a love letter to the history of that building, what it meant for everybody when it came to that. And so that's why we named it. And so that catalog came out in late August of every year. That's when it used to come out. It didn't have a specific date, just a specific, you know, window. So that's why we named the restaurant Late August. And so with that in mind, we're going to, you know, tap into those kind of department store themes, but make it very honest and true, not tacky, not gimmicky at all. And another part of the program, which is where 1913 ties into it, is that it's also going to be a teaching kitchen, because Chef Dawn is amazing. And I want her to share that wealth of knowledge she has with the next generation of cooks. And not just like, you know, your standard format to where, you know, the cooks come up over here, you teach them how to cut some potatoes or whatever it is, and they cook something, and that's what they're just a cog in the wheel kind of thing. We want to give them the opportunity to actually lead the kitchen because we want Chef Don to do more. So I'm really excited about that.
So it sounds like a culinary program.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, that's what 1913's turned into as well. It's a culinary program that's truly like creating a new workforce that has a deeper understanding and passion for food.
And, you know, speaking of 1913, I don't know if you've gotten this advice, you know, along the way as far as business is concerned, but some consultants would advise that, you know, businesses do philanthropic work in the community in order to raise awareness about their own businesses. Mm-hmm. But how did Lucille's 1913 come about for you? Was it something like, you know, trying to drive business to Lucille's, or was it something kind of a heart thing that you wanted to accomplish?
It was a need thing. It was a need thing. And it was the opposite of driving business initially. It almost drove it into the ground because I didn't know, you know, I didn't have Robertine. She wasn't a part of the team, so I didn't really know anything about the fundraising world and any of that. So it started with the pandemic and thinking about our elders in our neighborhoods and these communities that were uniquely affected by the risk of the pandemic because, you know, they may have subsidized living, but when it comes to food security, they're on their own, especially given that their family members no longer had access to them because of the risk, you know, they could pose to them and the whole community they lived in. So when that thought crossed our mind, because initially with the pandemic, we were feeding first responders because they're in our backyard. And so we did like 3,000 meals in the first 15 days. But then when that got on our radar about our elders, we went out there. We started in Anna Dupree in Sunnyside, which is where half my father's family ultimately ended up living. So very familiar with Sunnyside. And we went to Anna Dupree and I saw the mills that somebody had dropped off to them, and it had no consideration of who these people were, right? No consideration of what their palate's like. And when I looked at them, like, these are, you know, this is my family. Like, I already know them without even knowing them. And my family deserves better than that. So I went back to the restaurant and wrote out a menu for 30 days and submitted it to Anna Dupree and said, I want to feed these people. I want to feed your residents 5 days a week for the next 30 days. Of course, they agreed, and we started cooking and started developing these little relationships with the residents up over there, and the same relationships we'd have with any of our elders in any family. And so then it came down to like, okay, so how do we keep this going, right? Because it's not like, okay, hey, we're out of money, auntie, so, you know, good luck, you're on your own. I'm sure the food bank will be by at some point. Like, you can't do that. We had to figure out a way to do it. And if you go back to what I was talking about earlier about taking profitability out of the game, we were still a profitable business. So we took those profits and we put it right back into this work that we were doing. And ultimately we ended up at our peak, we were doing 1,800 meals a day, from Sunnyside all the way up to Acres Home, all the way down south to Kindleton, Texas. And targeting just, you know, it started with us, and then it just went to any community that was any older community that was in need, we were servicing. And then it evolved from that to where, as opposed to just teaching people how to, or giving people fish, how about we start to teach them how to fish too? Because one thing that you're always going to know is that unemployment's high in these communities. There's a bunch of dilapidated land, and our eyes switch from being, you know, if we're looking at seeing these things as like, you know, issues, as opposed to like, these are opportunities. That's a workforce right there. That's somebody I can go hire and teach how to cook and bring them into my world. And if you can learn how to cook, like I told my grandmother years ago, and she asked me, and she's like, baby, you still just want to be a cook? I was like, yeah. Just a cook. Mm-hmm. She asked me why, and I said, I feel like I can go anywhere in the world and I'll always be in demand. And that's the truth when it comes to cooks. Like, if you can burn, you will always have work. So that's what we started doing. We started employing people from these neighborhoods. And it went from just working in the kitchens, doing large scale production, to now working in our gardens, to where we're growing our own stuff. We're about to take over 52 acres of land in Fort Bend County, where we're going to employ close to 120 people. Everybody's getting paid $12 an hour to learn how to be masters of the land and create sustainability for their own families and their own communities. That's how 1913 was born.
Chris, I think we could stay on this call all day and just listen to all the good things that you have to say. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions before we get into some of the questions that are being posted into the chat. And if anyone has any questions, please post them in the chat. So, one of the things that faces Black entrepreneurs is access to capital. Can you share a little bit about your story? Was there any creative financing involved? How has bank financing in particular helped you with starting and growing your business?
Bank financing was non-existent for us. That's tough to come by for restaurants, period, especially restaurants of color, especially new restaurants. Like, we don't have a proven concept or a proven model, no source of income to put up over there. So yeah, banks weren't and probably will not be a thing anytime soon for most small business restaurateurs. What we did is we catered, we used family, and we're blessed enough to have the nuclear family they blessed us. And then we, Chef Kang and I, like I mentioned earlier, we started our catering business, and we're hungry, just out there getting contracts. And at our peak, we were doing $75,000 a month with a 2-man operation. But even that wasn't enough to get us over the hump. Yeah, so that being said, knowing what it's like to operate without capital, and then with this PPP, and seeing what it's like on the other side to have access to working capital, to really have comfort, to be able to know that these, payrolls covered, like that's cut, like I understand why they say the devil's in the details, because when you're caught up in the minutia on how you're just going to get things done, there's zero room for growth, which is why it's a real testament for any Black entrepreneur that's able to grow their business, because we are working with less than zero. It's lovely on the other side. We need to talk about how we can get other people to this other side where they can get access to this capital, because it changes the game. It really allows your creativity to just flourish and make things happen.
We have a board member on, Javon Sterling. If you would unmute yourself, would you kind of speak to what Chris just said about this other side, where African Americans can get this access to capital and make it a game changer, and let us know what you have going on at your bank where you're assisting? Javon, are you there?
I think he's here in spirit.
Javon may have had to
okay, I'm here. I was previously unable to unmute.
Okay.
So thank you for allowing me to speak briefly. Hey, Chris, it's good to be with you. We've met a few times and been at your restaurant, and you've built a really great environment, and you've definitely transcended just being a restaurant, but being a fixture of the community. So I want to commend you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, so 18 years in banking, and primarily working with small and medium-sized businesses, and I can attest that what you said is accurate. The disparities in lending to minority-owned businesses, especially restaurants, it's real. The disparity data is well documented. The Federal Reserve, many credible organizations have studied this, and as a board member of the Greater Houston Black Chamber and someone who's worked with small businesses for 18 years, I hear you. Right. So we just launched a $200 million fund, a special loan pool fund that we asked our regulators to allow us to lean in and to try to address this problem. So I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about it. They're specifically targeted at minority-owned businesses and restaurants. So let's exchange information. I'll be happy to tell you more about it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Javon. I can make that happen.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys get in touch. Yes, we wanted to highlight that because we do have here at the Chamber board members who represent banks. I saw Cherie Lawal Price on with Unity Bank that are very interested in working with our businesses to make sure we can get to the other side. So thank you, Javon, for that comment. We have another question in the chat regarding how you were able to keep the momentum, Chris, the interest in Lucille's and, how were you able to keep things going and, keeping a positive attitude, making sure everything kept going? What enabled you to do that through the pandemic?
Just an absolute love for the business, for one. The restaurant, my business, the restaurant business, and just a love for the people that have helped me build it and cultivate it. We didn't know that any of this other stuff was going to happen, PPPs and all this kind of stuff. And so you fight for your family. And so there wasn't really an alternative for us.
So really, it's just as simple as that. Some of the things we do in entrepreneurship when it comes to success is really not, a mystery. It's just really, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it and I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen. So what do you think, you're about 8 years in, you're growing in different locations. What have you learned? What were some of the biggest lessons that you've learned that you can share that, you think other entrepreneurs can relate to?
The biggest lesson, and I think I've already said it, is that investment in community is everything. Like it's everything, and it will undoubtedly be reciprocated if you do it genuinely. If a genuine investment. It's one thing to go do a food drop and hey, whatever. But it's another thing to be there and have that at the front of your business. You know what I mean? And I know that with the pandemic, we're going to see a lot of businesses come up with philanthropic arms of their business. You know what I mean? Like, look at our immediate give back. But people see what's genuine. Like, you have to be genuine. You have to be passionate. Like, that's really the most important thing. Obviously the investment in community, but you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Like, if you're doing anything for money, I guess some people could, maybe some people are passionate about money. I don't really know how that works. It's not a thing for me. But you just have to absolutely love what you're doing, because to really make anything work, you're going to have to suffer for it. Right. And I think that's the other definition for love, is suffering. So for parents, for children, for husbands and wives, like, if you love something, you're going to suffer for it. So you absolutely have to be passionate and in love with what you're doing.
I think, Chandra Livingston, would you come off of mute and ask your question about the artwork in Lucille's? Because one of the things I think that we don't do enough is support some of our other fellow entrepreneurs and business owners. And you've come up with what I think is a creative way to support visual artists. Chandra, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank Christopher. I've been a patron for many years, had a significant birthday there with 20 of my closest friends, and Chris came out to welcome us, to talk to the shelf. It was a real treat. Was recently in there for Friday for Mother's Day, because I knew Sunday was not gonna go. So I came in and we had dining in the back at Fresca, and it was amazing. And I noticed as I walked through the amazing artwork of Black women on the wall, so much so that it made me wonder if those were your own pieces, or is the restaurant now serving as a gallery for those artists where people can showcase that in a way where it takes advantage of their presence and having those pieces for sale? I was curious about that, because if that is, that's a wonderful model as well, but just curious about that.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for your support and those kind words. I really appreciate it. And I love your approach to Mother's Day. Very, very smart. Get it early. This Sunday, we should all be at home. Well, no, I take that back because that wouldn't be good for my business. But so as far as the gallery is concerned, I mean, the artwork is concerned. Yeah, so maybe we started this program about 6 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago. And we started bringing in local artists to do just exactly what you described, allow them to take over the space. We felt like it would keep the space fresh and introduces us to a new audience that maybe we wouldn't have, had access to. Originally, it's a talking point, and it, and it's a conduit to, for them to do some good business as well, and a new platform with, vice versa. They're able to get their work in front of a brand new audience. So we started with Lamont French, who's a third ward African-American artist, brilliant. And then we went to, I think we've had six artists in so far. The last one stuck for 3 years just because my mother loved it. I loved it. It just fit so well aesthetically. And I kind of got a little bit scared about changing because I got so used to it until this current artist came around. And forgive me, I can't remember her name right now, but I can definitely get it to you. She's a 70-year-old woman, and I'm in love with her work. Like, I wish that those pieces were mine, especially the one that's right in the middle of the dining room on the banquette. The lady who kind of looks like Diana Ross, like I'm crazy about it.
Yeah, I love the one on the way out to the back dining area. Mm-hmm. That's the one that I'm most interested in. So thanks for sharing that. I've seen that concept before, but normally they have little price tags on it, so it is definitely intentional. And so I'm glad to know that is the case. Thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah, and she did install those price tags. I don't know, you said you came last Friday, so yeah, they're definitely up now. They installed, I think, about a month ago, and they had 3 days that they didn't have all that info on there, but it's on there now.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chandra. All right, this will be our... Yes, thank you. Okay, this will be our last question, because one of the things that we are very interested in at the Chamber is building generational wealth. And in your family, our participants might not know, but I understand that there are several different businesses that you all are involved in. So do you have any advice, or, what are your thoughts on generational wealth in your family? Is this something that you all decided that you wanted to do? Has it been a concept that, you got together as a family and said, this is our family plan for building wealth. We want to own businesses. And what advice would you give to one of our business owners that is looking to pass down generational wealth?
Well, I don't know maybe the way I see wealth, I don't believe that we have it when it comes to like actual dollars. But I think what's more important than that, and there wasn't like a family planning or a meeting or like, hey, this is how we're going to handle the world. I think what our family really blessed us with was generational perspective and experience and support. That's been, and entrepreneurialism. Like that's one thing that's been passed down generally through the generations. And it's something that I'd imagine, like, if it was true wealth, it would be the same thing. Like, that's just what it is. You know what I mean? Oh, you want to do a business, baby? You feel like doing a business? Okay, go knock yourself out. You know what I mean? But having that support, that undying support from your family, and having those examples of what it's like to live and breathe in your own truth and your own passion. Because my father's an amazing criminal defense attorney that's been doing it for 50 years. And my mother's an amazing educator that's been doing it for the exact same amount of time.
What is the name of her school, Chris?
It is the Amani School. It is an HBCU for babies.
And the Amani School is also a Pinnacle Award winner. Just had to throw that in.
Yeah. She set the stage, and so I think that my award's slightly bigger than hers.
No offense, Miss Patricia. I saw you log on. No offense. Wasn't planned.
but yeah, I think that's the true gift. And I think that's born out of just like, you know, people doing business the right way and doing it for the right reasons, which is, I mean, of course you want to support your family. I mean, that's why we do anything, right? But yeah, I think that's the truth. That is the gift. That is the generational gift that my family afforded all of us, because I have two brothers and we all do three completely different things. And you know, success is relative. You know what I mean? And but the one thing that's true with all of us is that it's not about the dough, you know, and it's not about a house. It's like, are you loving what you're doing every day? Can you get up excited and go suffer this business you created? Because it's not, you know, it's not going to be a lovely thing and, you know, surrounded by bluebonnets all the time. It's going to be nasty and dark and scary, but you got to love it. Yeah. And so that's the gift from the family. And it goes 180 years back.
And what other businesses do you all have?
Well, I have the Lucilles thing. My father has his criminal defense practice. My mother has the HBCU, also known as Amani. Ben, the middle brother, he's Texas' first legally Black-owned distiller, because our grandfather was also well, I'll leave that out of it. The first legally Black-owned distillery. The second legally Black-owned distillery in the country, just behind Uncle Nearest, even though, well, whatever, that's debatable. But they're both amazing products. And his product is Highway Vodka. And you guys should totally check it out. And our oldest brother, Brian Williams, is the founder and director of Step Africa, which is DC's largest Black arts nonprofit. Excuse me. And he's also a cultural ambassador for the United States. So he essentially travels around the world telling the story and giving the gift of step dance, to all these different cultures everywhere, and telling the story of the evolution of step from traditional Zulu gumboot dancing that started in South Africa to what we see now in HBCUs.
I wanted to highlight those things because, number one, they're Black-owned businesses that we should support. And then also just to, you know, let everybody know you can diversify, you can bring your family in. I think it's important that the entrepreneurship and generational wealth discussions be had in our families. That's one of the things that I think holds us back, because we've been so focused on surviving, and which is important. It's very important, but also open your mind up to doing more than that, because we certainly want to be able to leave some things for the people that are coming behind us. Well, that's the end of our time today. But we appreciate you being with us, Chris. Thank you for all of your words of wisdom. If you look in the chat, you've gotten some kudos. Thank you, Christopher, for your vision and leadership and determination to succeed no matter what. Everyone, as we sign off today, we want to thank you for joining us. Make sure that you continue to support the Chamber and let others know about this Master Series and about the other work that we're doing in the community. We need your support. If you're not a member of the Chamber, please join the Chamber today. It is your membership that allows us to bring you these types of discussions. Now, save the date. Chris is a Pinnacle Award winner. October 23rd is the next installment of the Pinnacle Awards. And please stay tuned to our social media. We have a Black Business Boot Camp coming up on May 27th, sponsored by Comerica Bank and District K, Vice Mayor Pro Tem Martha Castex Tatum. So until next time, stay Black, stay free, make your money, call the Chamber. We will definitely help you with whatever you need help with regard to growing and sustaining your business. Everyone take care and have a great afternoon.